Now, let us round off 54 to the nearest tens. So we are interested in rounding off to the nearest tens. So we are going to look at the tens in our number. This is ones and this is tens. So circle that tens. And then look at the number that is after the 5, okay? So this is 4. We are going to round it down because it is less than 5. We are going to round it down because it is less than 5. So that means this 5 remains as it is, and then every number after this 5 is converted to 0. So that now we have rounded off 54 to 50. So rounding off 54 to the nearest tens becomes 50. Now let's look at this number 68. Now 68, the tens is this 6. Now let us look at the number next to the 6. We are going to round it up, okay? Rounding up because this number is 5 and above. It is already a 5 and above. It is an 8, okay? So to round up means we are going to add 1 to this tens so that we have 7s. The tens plus a 1 is 7. And then every number after this tens is converted to a 0. So this 8 is converted to a 0. So that now we have a rounded number. Now let's look at another number like 41. Now we are going to circle the 4 because it is the tens that we are interested in. Now we are going to round down because this one is less than 5. So we round down. Rounding down means we are going to remain with these 4 tens, and then every number after that is converted to a 0. So our answer is 40. We could do another example. Let's try rounding off 20 to the nearest tens. We are interested in these tens. And then because the number that is to the right is less than 5, we will round down. So rounding down means we will remain at 2, and then every number after that is converted to a 0. So our answer is 20. Rounding off 20 to the nearest tens is 20. Let's look at number 99. We want to round it off to the nearest tens. This 9 is the tens. Now, the number that is next to it is a 9. It is 5 and above. It is already a 5 and above. So that means we are rounding up. Rounding up means we are going to add 1 to our tens so that we have 10. Now, the number that is after these tens converted to a 0. So that now we have 100. Let's look at another example, 64. Rounding off to the nearest tens, we circle our tens. Then since this number that is to the right is less than 5, we are going to round down. So 6 remains as it is, and then the number that is after this 6 is converted to a 0. 64 rounded off to the nearest tens is 60. Let's look at 28. We want to round off 28 to the nearest tens. These are our tens. Now, the number to the right of these two is already a 5 and above. So that means we are going to round up. Rounding up means we'll add 1 to our tens so that we have 3. And then the numbers after the tens are converted to 0. So our rounded off number is 30. Let's look at another example, 33. We circle the 3, and then we check the number to the right of that 3. This is the number. Because it is less than 5, we will round down. Rounding down means we remain at 3, and then every number that is after that is converted to a 0. So rounding off 33 to the nearest tens is 30. Let us look at 86. We want to round off 86 to the nearest tens. Circle the tens because we are rounding off to the nearest tens. So the number that is to the right of these tens is already a 5 and above, so we will round up. So we are going to add 1 to the tens and have 9, and then all the numbers that are after these tens are converted to 0. So our answer is 90. Another example, let's look at number 72. We want to round off to the nearest tens. We circle the tens. Look at the number that is to the right. It is below 5, so we round down. 7 remains as it is, and then the numbers that are after the tens are converted to zeros. Our answer is 70. 96, rounded off to the nearest tens. We are going to say this is our tens. We want to round off to the nearest tens. So look at the number to the right. It is already 5 and above, so we will round up. Rounding up means we add 1 to the tens so that we have a 10, and the number that is after our tens is converted to a 0. So our answer is 100. Okay, now we want to round off to the nearest hundreds. So we have our number 548. We want to round it off to the nearest hundreds. These ones, tens, hundreds. These are ones, tens. These are hundreds. So this is the number that we are interested in. So we look at the number to the right, which is already less than 5. It is less than 5. So we will round down. Rounding down means we have 5, and then the numbers that are after the 5 are converted to zeros. So 548 to the nearest hundreds is 500. 684. Let's look at this number, 684. This is the hundreds. We will look at the number to the right of the hundreds, which is already a 5 and above. So that means we are going to round up. Rounding up means we are going to add 1 to the hundreds so that now we have 7. And then every number that is after these hundreds is converted to zeros. So our answer here is 700. Let's look at 406. 4 is our hundreds. The number that is to the right of the hundreds is less than 5. So we will round downwards. So that means we are going to say this is 4. And then every number after this 4 is converted to 0. So that our answer is 400. If we have 202, we are going to circle our hundreds. We want to round off to the nearest hundreds, remember. So circle the hundreds. Then look at the number to the right. It is less than a 5. So we will round down. We're going to say we have 2, and then every number after that is converted to a 0. So 202 rounded off to the nearest hundreds is 200. Now we have 991. This is the hundreds that we want to convert. We want to round off to the nearest hundreds. So we look at the number to the right. It is already 5 and above. So that means we are going to round up. To round up, we are going to add a 1 to the hundreds. We are concerned with the hundreds. So here we have 10. Now every number that is to the right is converted to a 0. So these are 2 zeros. So 991 rounded off to the nearest hundreds is 1,000. We have a number 646. We want to round off these hundreds to the nearest hundred. Now the number to the right is less than 5. So we will round down. We will round this down. So it will be 6. And then every number after that is converted to a 0. So our 646 to the nearest hundreds is 600. Let's do 285. Let's round off 285 to the nearest hundreds. So we will circle the hundreds. Look at the number to the right. It is already a 5 and above. So we will round up. add 1 to the hundreds, you have 3. Then every number that is to the right is converted to a 0. So we have 300. 285 rounded off to the nearest hundreds is 300. Let's do another example where we have 332. Circle the hundreds. Look at the number to the right. It is less than 5, so we round down. And then the numbers that are after the hundreds are converted to zeros. So 332 to the nearest hundreds is 300. We have 864. Round off to the nearest hundreds. Circle the hundreds, then look at the number to the right. It is already 5 and above, so that means we are rounding up. We are going to add 1 to our hundreds so that we have 9. And then we say every number that is after that is converted to zeros. So our answer is 900. Now try and work this out on your own. Before we have 723 and then we have 967. Round off those numbers to the nearest hundreds and see whether you get the right answer. So 723, this is the hundreds. So the number to the right is less than 5. So we round down. Rounding down means we have 7 remaining to be 7. And then every number to the right is converted to 0. So our answer is 700. 967, we are rounding off to the nearest hundreds. So circle the hundreds. Then look at the number to the right. It is already 5 and above. So that means we are rounding up. Rounding up means you add 1 to the hundreds. So that now you have 10. And then every number that is to the right is converted to zeros. So our answer here is 1,000. And that is how we round off numbers to the nearest given number. So we can also round off numbers to thousands and 10,000s depending on what the question is asking.